is Moses the prophet. And we all know that Pharaoh gave the order to his people that every newborn Hebrew boy to throw into the Nile River. The girls could live. About this time, a man and a woman from the tribe of Levi were blessed with a son. And his mother knew he was special, and she hid him in a basket. And he lived with his parents for 3 months, but then he was put into the basket and laid among the reeds of the bank of the river. And his sister, Miriam, went to see what would happen to him, and she saw the Pharaoh's daughter come to the river and find the baby. So Miriam asked the princess if she wanted her to go and find a Hebrew woman to nurse the baby, and she said yes. So she went and got her mother, and she took care of the baby and nursed him until he was older, and then she took him to Pharaoh's house, where the princess adopted him. And his name was Moses. And she named him Moses because she had lifted him from the water. When Moses was grown up, he went to visit his own people, the Hebrews. He saw how hard they were forced to work and how the Egyptians beat his Hebrew people. Moses killed the Egyptian who was beating a Hebrew man and buried his body under the sand. Pharaoh heard Moses had killed the Egyptian and tried to kill Moses, but Moses fled to Midian. Moses met his wife, Zipporah, in Midian. She gave birth to a son Moses named Gershom. Years passed and the king of Egypt died, but the Israelites continued to grow under their burden of slavery. They cried out for their help, and God rose and he remembered his promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and he knew it was time to act. Moses led a flock of sheep into the wilderness and came to Sinai, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from the middle of a bush. Moses stared in amazement. Though the bush was engulfed in flames, it didn't burn up. Why isn't that bush burning up? When the Lord saw Moses coming closer, God called to him from the middle of the bush, Moses, do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When Moses heard this, he covered his face because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord told Moses he was to lead his people out of Egypt and into their own fertile, spacious land of milk and honey. Moses protested to God, "Who am I to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt?" God told Moses he would be with him. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God at this very mountain. If I go to the people of Israel and tell them that God of your ancestors has sent me to you, they will ask me, what is his name? Then what should I tell them? God replied to Moses, I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, I am, has sent me to you. Say this to the people of Israel, Joshua, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my eternal name, my name to remember for all generations. Moses and the king of Egypt asked the king of Egypt to take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God. God knew the king would not let them go, so he raised his hand and struck the Egyptians, performing all kinds of miracles among them, and causing the Egyptians to look favorably on you. Moses still thought he wouldn't be believed. Moses had a shepherd's staff, and in his hand the Lord told him to throw it down on the ground and turn it into a snake. The Lord told him to reach out and grab its tail. When he did, it turned back into a shepherd's staff. Moses put his hand in his cloak, and it came out white as snow and had a severe skin disease. He put it back in his cloak, and it came out healthy. Third sign, some water from the Nile River poured onto the dry ground. When you do that, it will turn into the blood it will turn into blood on the ground. Moses was not good with words. The Lord was with Moses, so the Lord will instead instruct him what to say. The Lord became angry with Moses and told him to take his brother Aaron, the Levite, with him. Moses was 80 and Aaron was 83. They went to Egypt and called the elders of Israel together, and Aaron told them what the Lord had said, and they bowed down and worshipped. And then the Lord did a lot of plagues on Egypt, and then we go to the Passover, where you had to take blood and put on your door, so that when the Lord killed all the Egyptians, then all the Hebrews were saved. And then when they were at the river, the Red Sea, the Pharaoh harnessed up the chariots and called his troops. As the troops approached, the people of Israel panicked, and they asked Moses why he had brought them to the wilderness. And Moses told them, "Don't be afraid, just stand and watch, and the Lord will save us." And the Lord told Moses to hold up his staff and to spread his hands, and the sea divided, and all the Israelites crossed the Red Sea, and all the Egyptians were drowned. Moses seemed drawn to do the right thing, but he was always jumping in to help someone. And leadership involves reaction. And we always have to think God is best to deliver us in times of stress. And when stress comes, we know that God is with us and we should obey him. In Moses, we see an outstanding personality shaped by God. God did not change who or what Moses was. God did give Moses new abilities and strength. God took Moses' characteristics and molded them until they were suited to his purpose. Does knowing this make a difference in your understanding of God's purpose in your life? To take what he has created in the first place and use it for its intended purposes. In your next talk with God, don't ask what should I change into. Ask how should I use my own abilities and strengths to do your will. And let's see, I have some statistics here. Let's see. Moses recorded the 10 Commandments. Moses was a servant of the Lord, died in the land of Mok. The Lord buried him in a valley near Beth Peran in Moab. To this day, no one knows the exact place Moses was. He was 120 when he died. His eyesight was very clear. He was as strong as ever. The people mourned for 30 days. Joshua was now full of the spirit of wisdom because Moses had laid his hands on him. So the people of Israel obeyed him just as the Lord had commanded Moses. There has never been another prophet in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. The Lord sent him to perform all the miraculous signs and wonders in the land of Egypt against Pharaoh. With mighty power, Moses performed terrifying acts in the sight of the Lord and the sight of all Israel. Do you have any questions? I hope I have an answer.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I know there's some stuff I left out, but I mean, it's almost impossible because he did a lot.
He's a big character.
Yeah.
What? I never knew he had the son's name was Gershon, you said?
Yeah.
Do we ever know what happened to him? What did he do? Did he do anything?
Sure. I don't think so.
I don't think he did anything remarkable, did
I
he?
don't think that you hear much else of him at all in the Bible.
I didn't see him with Charlton Heston.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I didn't either, yeah.
No, I don't think.
And when they
that-
do those movies, they should do them
I
right.
think that is it Gershom that became the father of, which one of the ites?
The Hittites, maybe?
Or-
The Amorites?
the Jebusites, I want to say, but I'm not for sure about that. But I don't know, nothing else is really mentioned of him that I'm aware of.
So they were enemies of Israel?
Who?
All those lights are enemies.
Yeah, typically, yeah.
So he was the father of some of those
Yeah, I believe so.
who rebelled?
What's his name? United
Gershon.
Did
let me
Deborah
see.
go with
I
him?
keep wanting to spell Grecian formula,
She
but I know
did? She left
that's.
the tribe and went with him into the desert?
Let me look and see, I
Maybe
could be
with the
wrong.
desert.
I mean, well, when he
It's
lost favor with God.
Gershom.
I guess we're not really, we might not really be told, huh?
Something for me to look up.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it now. I think the Moses was in the
That's when he
Quran.
died, right?
What?
When he went to, when he got angry with the people and God got angry with him. and
Well, I thought-
Yeah.
When he couldn't go into the promised land.
He
He
Right.
died shortly thereafter, didn't he?
Right.
Did he?
He was 120, but he was like 80 when he started out.
So did Zipporah stay with the,
And what, didn't they fight over his body, the devil and,
Yes,
and
yeah,
Michael?
Michael the Archangel,
Archangel? Why
he's
did they fight?
also the one that was in the
Transfiguration.
yeah.
Why did they fight over that?
I'll have to relook and find out what the battle was about, why they battled for his body. But I think Moses represents the lawgiver. So there were three people, and this is the answer Rich's question, if I'm not mistaken. But on Mount Transfiguration, there were three: Moses, Jesus, and Elijah. And when they looked, the disciples looked upon the three, they wanted to build 3 tabernacles, okay, they wanted to build. But when they looked again, there was only the Lord, which is symbolic of the new covenant. And I believe and this is total
Did
book of
Elijah
J.
represent the prophets?
He did, he represented the prophets and Moses represented the law.
Who, Elijah representative? That was
Yes.
my question, okay.
Yeah,
I got
and
it.
so the law and the prophets are fulfilled
Right.
in Jesus. And so if Satan was battling for the body of Moses, he's essentially trying to stop that merging of the covenants into Christ, would be my only get, and that's the book of J totally. You know, and I'll look it up though. I was looking up which one of the ites that I thought this dude fathered. Shubal was the son of Gershom. I'll have to look and see, but I could be totally wrong. It's been a long time since I looked this up.
Maybe you're thinking of Ishmael.
I don't know. Have to look and see. Good job, Pat.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I did want to.
I think Moses is mentioned in the Quran too.
He is. He sure is.
No,
There's a lot of prophets.
A lot of the prophets are recognized by.
Yeah. Yeah, they just took,
He's in the Quran.
they get a lot of their stuff
As a
from the
prophet.
Bible. Muhammad didn't come up with that stuff on his own.
So he basically parroted.
Yeah.
Not
And
parroted.
he just put his own twist on it. It's called his,
So,
you know. But I did want to read you guys something. One of the things that I always loved about reading about Moses was in Exodus, you guys know he smashed the 10 Commandments when he come down and found them. They were worshiping a golden calf and all this kind of stuff. Well, the Lord told Moses to come back up on the mountain and made him chisel out the stones himself. The first set God did. And then Moses took what God had with his own finger written in the stone and smashed them down when he found the people living in revelry. But then in chapter 34, which is one of my favorite ones about him, it says, "Then the Lord told Moses, chisel out 2 stones like the first ones." And trust me, that wasn't God just messing around. He probably said it now. You jacked mine up, you're coming up here and you're going to chisel them out yourself. And who knows how long it took him to chisel out these, I'm sure that's limestone.
It took him a while, because weren't they waiting on him a long time?
Yeah, he was up there quite a
I
while.
thought he died.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. So, chisel out 2 stone tablets like the first ones. I will write on them the same words that were on the tablets you smashed. Be ready in the morning to climb up Mount Sinai and present yourself to me on the top of the mountain. No one else can come with you. he said. And he said to him, he said, in fact, no one is to appear anywhere on this mountain. Do not even let the flocks or herds graze even near this mountain. So Moses chiseled out 2 tablets of stone like the first ones. Then early in the morning he climbed Mount Sinai as the Lord had commanded him, and he carried the 2 stone tablets in his hands. Let me tell you, it's much easier to go down the mountain than it is to go up the mountain with 2 great big stone tablets. And then the Lord came down in a cloud and stood there with him and called out his own name, Yahweh. The Lord passed in front of Moses, calling out, Yahweh, the Lord. Now listen to this. This is one of the things that I really like. The God of compassion and mercy, I am slow to anger and filled with unfailing love and faithfulness. This is the nature of God. God himself is saying it. I lavish unfailing love to 1,000 generations. I forgive iniquity, rebellion, and sin, but I do not excuse the guilty. In other words, God will forgive you of them things if you ask God to forgive you. But if you don't forgive him, just because he has unfailing love and lavishes it upon you doesn't mean he's going to excuse you if you don't ask to be forgiven. Okay? And it says, I lay the sins, now check this out. I lay the sins of the parents upon their children and grandchildren. The entire family is affected. Even children in the 3rd and 4th generations. So what you do will affect your kids and your grandkids and your great-grandkids and your great-great-grandkids. God promised that.
What chapter is that again?
That's in Exodus 34. And that's basically 1 through 7. Where God promises to visit the iniquity of the parents upon the children. So, in other words, what I'm saying is, this was the Bible thousands of years ago telling you that if you're an alcoholic, well, don't be surprised when your kids are.
Right.
If you're into drugs, why are you surprised your kids are? And then your grandkids will be too. And then your great-grandkids will be too. And your great-great-grandkids will be too. So, that's the kind of thing God's saying. The only thing that can break that evil chain is the blood of Jesus Christ. But even then, Satan will try his best to destroy you and your children. So it's very important that we remember this. God lays the sin of the parents upon the children.
Moses reminds me a lot in ways of David. Because God chose both of them, obviously.
Yep.
And they both were great men of God, but they also had very big failings.
Yep.
You know.
I think every man of God has that because I think in order to become a true person of God, a man of God, we'll say just leave it to pastorate and prophets and things. You are constantly under the fire of testing. And under the fire of temptation, and under the fire of Satan all the time. Yeah. When you don't, when you're not, Satan will definitely chase after you. It's okay, but when you're not really in the game, then you don't really experience a whole lot. But boy, when you're in the game and you're a soul winner and you're out there and you're trying to get her done, God's going to put it on, or Satan's going to put it on, you should say, your target. And you'll start experiencing all kinds of stuff. Things that you could never imagine would come your way and you would have to try to deal with them. It's unbelievable.
What happened to the 10 Commandments? Do we know?
They're supposed to have been in the Ark of the Covenant.
Oh, they're in the Ark. That's right.
And Aaron's rod,
Yeah.
which continually,
The
the manna. Yeah, and it's supposed to be a rose blooms or a flower blooms on that rod.
Yeah.
So, but where is the ark? Well, I asked Indiana Jones about that. He said it's in the tomb of the... Yeah. Most people say that the ark was taken by God, along with the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But or the tree of life, I should say, the tree of life, was taken by God. So others say that it's buried under the temple. Is where that they think that it was put in the last days before the discord.
Recently I saw something about that's buried at the temple.
Yeah. Do they know where it's at? If it's buried, I would say if it's on earth, I would say it's probably, there are probably people who know where it's at.
Sure, high priest.
I would say. I would say probably. I would say, and it's probably a guarded secret with people's lives. So,
Another Indiana Jones.
yep,
Sounds like a plot.
yep.
Either that or Hitler took it, right? That's what they were saying.
Hitler was after the relics, the old relics.
When the temple was destroyed in 70 AD, the Romans pretty much killed everybody in Jerusalem.
Nobody, they did it in.
So they would be the ones that would have had control of all the artifacts. So where they went from there,
Unless it was hidden really well.
I mean,
Unless they, I mean, you figure, the town's on fire. Now, they probably, knowing these people back then, you know, they were very astute, smart, they probably had a plan for that thing. If things go bad in this country, what are we going to do with the ark? There was probably a prearranged place already ready for it. It wasn't like something they said, oh, the city's on fire, come, let's go get that thing, take it somewhere. Yeah, so you know they probably had.
They've been oppressed for millennia.
Yeah, they did not want the Philistines to get it again. Right.
I would say so.
You know, it got captured by the Philistines. And then it got retaken back by the Israelites. But I would say that they had a place that no one's going to ever find. You know?
I think that the Knights Templar actually had a lot of those artifacts also.
I think they did too.
The Holy Grail and all
You know, I think that they did because their job was to protect the Christians back in the day. The road to Damascus was one of them. The Knights Templar Guard, that's what their job was. You know, they wasn't meeting down at the Masonic Temple down here. And, you know, their job was to protect Christianity. That's what their job was. So, that's where that comes from. So, naturally, you know, a lot of people, you know, are talk about Masonry, modern Masonry, and as being evil. And a lot of that comes from the Catholic Church. A lot of Catholics today just can't believe Masons are anything good. And, but in all actuality, they're the very ones.
The Catholics don't like Masons?
No.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Hate them.
So,
Masonry was actually started by King Solomon.
so Masons wouldn't be Catholics?
No. Nobody. Catholic. Matter of fact, the Catholic Church killed them, tried to kill as many of them as they could.
And which was on the History Channel about Hitler. He was
Well, it
always-
seems like somebody.
Yeah, and Hitler and the Catholic Church was.
They were BFFs.
Oh yeah, they was. The Catholic Church hid most of the surviving high members of the Nazi regime, especially those that was in charge of death camps and everything. They hid them. They hid them in Argentina. There's pictures and photographs. There's documentation that they would get together and have big get-togethers and have Hitler a birthday party down there, and the Catholics were hiding.
Well, that makes sense because they tried to kill the Jews out the first time.
Yep.
But, you
What was
know.
that called again?
The Holocaust.
No, the other one, the Catholic Church was in charge of.
Oh,
Crusade.
the Crusade. No,
No,
that was
they
in
tried to
Jerusalem.
wipe people,
What's that?
wipe the Jews out. The word escapes me. Spain had a lot.
Oh, the Inquisitions.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. But yeah.
Right here, when you was talking about the parents and the children, grandchildren, is that what some people call the generational curse?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. But now, also, you know, like God said there, for those that join Him, He lavishes His love on thousands of generations. You know, I mean, that's what breaks the curse. You know, but when you look at families, you know, it's more than, it's very spiritual. What gets locked up in families and happens to family members. If you look at a lot of families, you'll see sons doing the same thing their dad and mom did. And they didn't even know mom and dad did that, but they just do it, not even knowing that they did that. You know, there's a lot of things that my dad has never told me until I was doing it. I used to do the same thing. They call it DNA remembrance. And that can hit you from generations from where you're at. So you could live nearly the same life as one of your ancestors did. And again, this is modern science's explanation of it. I was talking to an anthropologist one time. One of our tribal members is an anthropologist for the University of Cincinnati. And he's renowned. And he said that you take a lot of people, he told me that, because of some things that I'd said and things that I did. He goes, it's like DNA remembrance of your ancestry that you would even say that, because I know you don't know. He goes, that this person, because he knows every person and native ancestry, who they were, what they did, where they went, what their tendencies was. I mean, he's an expert at it. And he said, well, that's exactly what your ancestor said. Or that's exactly, your dad will say, that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what your grandpa did. Yes, your great-grandpa did the same thing. My grandpa, both my grandfathers were both preachers. And here I am. You know, same thing. And all the generations back, keep going back, and there's preachers galore.
Yeah, it's we were doing a job probably 15 or 20 years ago for a guy that knew my dad's grandfather very well. He died when I was 2. I didn't know him. But the guy asked me, he goes, you remember your granddad? No. And I said, no, I was only 2. He goes, you remind me of him.
Right.
No,
You don't look like it at
all.
DNA remembrance.
It wasn't, we don't look nothing alike. He was dark haired.
Tendencies.
He said, you remind me of him.
Probably
The way
you walk
your
around.
mannerisms and the
Yeah.
way you are, he said, you remind me of him.
See?
I
Same
don't know.
thing.
So like, you know how you'll see people like say their grandpa beat their grandma or whatever, and then on down the line,
You'll see
you
that
keep
happening
saying,
again.
you know, why would you do that when you know that how you were treated? Why would you want to treat your kid like that?
Yeah.
So it's just because they don't have the Lord with them?
A lot of that stuff like that, abused people, I will just say abused people. A lot of abused people learn behaviors like that. I think Dana testified to that. You become abused is normal to you. That's the way of affection. You get shown some, what's the word I'm looking for? Shown some attention by your being abused, and so it gets passed on to you, and then you pass it on to your children.
Or
It's
I
kind of the
think,
same
Yeah.
thing,
I
really,
think
but.
too though, I mean, like Kathy's saying, it doesn't make sense, but after they maybe perhaps mature, now they can exert some control over some other person that
Yeah.
can't defend themselves, so they become an.
And you look at a lot of battered women. They meet up again with other men that will batter them. It's just the way that it is. You know, that they accept that lifestyle as a way that they can receive affection. I'm talking straight.
There wasn't that, Emily's friend, had a friend named Scott in the area. Do you remember him?
No.
Tammy, you remember him?
Remember the name?
Well, he died a couple years ago of drug overdose.
Yeah.
And that was the family I talked about before, that they're the Rose family. Well, Scott was one of the Rose, so, but how many people in that family died from addictions?
Are we talking about John
Like
Rose?
six.
Huh?
John and Laura Rose?
John, that's John's nephew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I know
Yeah.
him.
We know
Yes.
the Roses.
Yeah.
John.
And Scott was his nephew.
Okay.
His nephew.
Yeah.
So, I mean, unbelievable, just.
But John, their parents were alcoholics,
Yeah.
and then
just-
Gary, their son, died of alcoholism, and then his daughter died of a drug overdose.
Yeah.
I mean, and
I
then
mean, unbelievable, that family.
My dad told me the same. My dad told me, he said, he goes, you are living my life a generation after me. He goes, everything you go through that you, and it's just things that naturally take place. Even amongst us brothers, there was 3 in Dad's family, and there was 3 of us kids. Dad's 3 brothers. My oldest brother was just like my dad's oldest brother. My middle brother was just exactly like my dad's middle brother, and I'm exactly like my dad. And I mean, it's a stinking exact match. I mean, you couldn't, I mean, everything we do, Dad says, you guys never do it, but he goes, you're living my life. Everything that you're going through, everything that you're doing, everything that's happening to you with your children and your life and all these things, I went through the same thing. He goes, to the T. And he would give me examples, and it's DNA, man. I mean, it's DNA remembrance. That's the best way I know to explain it, the same way as Ken Tankersley did.
So now, since you know that, if you have a problem, you just ask your dad, right?
Exactly right. I did. My dad's my confidant. My dad, what'd you do in this? Because I know it's going to happen to me anyway. So Dad just, what did you do, Dad? What, did this happen to you? Yeah, I've been there too, you know. And just, my dad's oldest brother was vindictive and mean and cruel. I mean, they would, when they were younger, I'll give you some examples. When they were younger, they were very poor. So Uncle Ronnie would